Inside a sunlit train station, Theodore Liam Battenberg, a striking young commander with a stoic demeanor, stands staring down at an elegant piece of parchment. The dramatic script from his grandmother, the Dowager Duchess, practically radiates off the page, claiming his silence has reduced her heart to almost ash and sternly commanding him to immediately accept the latest royal marriage proposal upon his upcoming summer leave. Theodore lets out a heavy, exhausted sigh, muttering a silent grievance to himself about his grandmother's relentless, lingering matchmaking schemes. The quiet is broken when a close naval comrade steps towards him, noticing the tense atmosphere and asking with a knowing smirk if the commander is reviewing yet another marriage prospect. Rubbing his temples in frustration, Theodore bitterly explains that these letters are a dreaded, unavoidable ritual he must brace himself for before every single vacation, admitting he is thoroughly sick of the endless nagging. His comrade raises an eyebrow, pointing out that love letters flood the Admiralty daily, and that Theodore could effortlessly marry or date whenever he pleased. Cutting him off sharply, Theodore dismisses the concept of romance entirely, dryly questioning if the other man doesn't find the idea of love to be completely dreadful and hollow, before abruptly demanding to hear his officer's own summer plans instead. He cheerfully shares his itinerary, explaining that he is heading south to Gloucester Castle to help his uncle, who works as the head gardener for the Somerset family and desperately needs extra hands for the vast estate grounds. Theodore looks at him with genuine disbelief, questioning why anyone would willingly choose hard labor during their scarce time off. Defending his choice, the colleague insists that keeping busy beats lounging around, eagerly painting a vivid picture of the crisp southern air and a nearby river that is absolutely perfect for swimming. As the officer continues to ramble, his voice begins to fade into the background, and Theodore's gaze grows distant as his mind drifts into a sudden, vivid memory. A stark infirmary comes into view, where a heavily bandaged comrade lies confined to a hospital bed, while a younger, equally injured Theodore sits tightly bound in medical dressings right beside him. Looking out from beneath his layers of gauze, the bedridden soldier turns his head toward the seated commander and bluntly observes that Theodore seems to possess absolutely no passion for life. When a younger, equally bandaged Theodore defensively demands to know what that is supposed to mean, the comrade merely smiles sadly and predicts that Theodore will keep living in that exact same rigid, passionless manner forever. Resting a hand over his own chest, the comrade implores Theodore to stop calculating everything with his head just once, urging him to follow sudden impulses or desires instead, guaranteeing that something truly wonderful will happen if he does. The memory shatters as his officer's voice snaps Theodore back to reality, with the man casually asking if Theodore's own relatives aren't located somewhere in the south as well. Theodore stares at the palace letter, the words of his past comrade echoing deeply in his mind as an uncharacteristic spark flashes in his eyes. Looking up at his astonished companion, the cynical Duke of Battenberg calmly announces a complete change of mind, declaring that he will be bypassing his royal obligations entirely to join him on that wholesome, hard-working summer vacation in the south. Deep within the walls of Gloucester Castle, the boisterous laughter of two older men echoes through a lavishly decorated room, where a quiet, blonde girl named Vanessa Siren Somerset sits, with her head bowed under their scrutinizing gazes. Leaning back airily, the wealthy baron expresses his immense satisfaction, loudly praising how remarkably well-behaved and lovely Vanessa is, noting that the late Earl raised his niece so desirably that she has far exceeded all expectations. The newly appointed Earl Somerset looks toward his wealthy guest, simply asking if they should now proceed with the marriage arrangements, exactly as planned. The Baron counters immediately, asserting that before any wedding takes place, he requires an absolute guarantee of the bride's purity, coldly arguing that even a second wife would look unseemly if she resembled a piece of damaged product. Vanessa looks down at the floor as her uncle sharply retorts that any suspicion cast upon his niece's virtue is a direct insult to his honor, but the Baron remains completely undeterred, crudely arguing that a second wife must not look like a piece of damaged product. The Baron assures the Earl that if her purity is fully guaranteed, the Earl may demand whatever favors he desires in return, smugly mentioning that he knows an expert uniquely gifted at sensing whether or not a woman has been familiar with men. The atmosphere grows even colder as Vanessa is strictly reminded that everything changes from this day forward, and since the title of the late Earl Somerset has officially passed to her uncle, Mr. Wyatt. She no longer holds any legal rights to the estate or the family fortune. She listens in despair as it is made clear that Mr. Wyatt now controls every single aspect of her life, from the food she eats to the clothes she wears, and that once she comes of age, even her marriage will be entirely his decision, before the cruel declaration wraps up with a hollow wish for her future luck. Overwhelmed by the crushing weight of her reality, Vanessa flees the suffocating room, running blindly into the castle gardens until she collapses against the trunk of a tree, tears streaming down her face. Sobbing into her hands, she laments the horrific truth of the marriage trade awaiting her the moment she enters adulthood, bitterly realizing that the word product truly is the perfect description for what she has become. At that precise second, a heavy pomegranate detaches from the branches above and strikes the ground, splitting open to reveal a bruised, damaged interior that perfectly mirrors her own fractured spirit. A sudden breeze carries the sharp, unmistakable scent of cigarette smoke through the air, catching her attention and causing her to look around the secluded garden in deep confusion. Wiping her eyes, Vanessa simply walks over to the other side of the very same garden to locate the source of the mysterious smoke. Resting comfortably beneath the shade of a large tree, the brooding naval commander sits quietly as he exhales a slow plume of gray smoke into the afternoon air, completely oblivious to the heartbroken girl watching him from across the greenery. Vanessa QC gazes through the lush leaves at the mysterious man lounging under a tree, quietly puffing on a cigarette. She watches him intently, completely unfamiliar with his face, and wondering if he is simply a newly hired gardener for the estate. His sharp eyes suddenly snap in her direction, catching her staring. Startled by his keen awareness, she stammers out a flustered greeting to excuse herself, but her voice is instantly drowned out by a loud, panicked shout from the garden path. Her personal maid, Mary, rushes into the clearing, breathless and exasperated, loudly exclaiming that she has been searching the entire castle for her lady and demanding to know what she is doing hiding out alone in the greenery. Vanessa quickly glances back toward the tree, only to find the space completely empty, prompting her to bewilderedly ask Mary if she had seen the man who was standing right there just a moment ago. A week later, high up in the estate's sunlit orchards, Theodore casually plucks ripe fruit from the branches of a tree while his comrade stands directly beneath him, holding a wide fruit basket to catch the harvest. The junior officer pointedly notes that Lady Vanessa has spent the last 7 days shadowing the commander's every move, clearly desperate to speak with him. Shifting the basket to catch another falling fruit, the comrade suggests that it might be time to stop ignoring the young lady and actually grant her a brief conversation to see what she wants. Theodore scoffs from the branches, completely dismissing the idea as an exercise in predictable, boring cliches, dryly predicting that she will merely confess to falling in love at first sight and beg for his name, an idea that exhausts him just thinking about it. The junior officer concedes that Vanessa does indeed seem entirely smitten, but firmly argues that Theodore should at least correct her misunderstanding, considering she currently believes he is the low-born gardener, River Rose. Reminiscing quietly as he adjusts his grip on the basket, the comrade adds that while the young lady likely has no memory of it, they used to be close childhood playmates, before desperately imploring the commander to please, for the love of God, move into proper lodgings. Theodore looks down through the leaves, questioning what could possibly be wrong with his current quarters, prompting his junior officer to vent his deep discomfort at seeing a high-ranking naval commander sleeping in a cramped, ordinary servant's shed when a luxurious villa sits vacant nearby. Dropping lightly from the tree right next to the basket, Theodore firmly reminds him that his current identity is strictly River Rose, the humble nephew assisting the Somerset family's head gardener, reasoning that living like royalty would instantly compromise his disguise. He points a warning finger at his friend, explaining that a blown cover means word would travel instantly back to his grandmother, resulting in him being dragged straight back to that suffocating palace and forced into the most dreadful marriage imaginable, an ending he asks if his comrade truly desires. The junior officer murmurs a worried title of respect, but Theodore waves it off, insisting that he is actually thoroughly enjoying his time in disguise and that his companion can keep his useless anxieties to himself. The comrade looks around the property in utter bewilderment, struggling to comprehend how anyone could find joy in such a tacky, outdated backwater estate, where cheap imitation paintings line the hallways, low-quality rugs cover the floors, and fruit trees are improperly grown in a formal garden. Theodore sweeps his gaze across the grounds, inwardly agreeing that even the family crest on display is cheap copper rather than gold. Yet he silently reflects that even in such a run-down, classless place, there remains one single thing of genuine, breathtaking value. His internal monologue is abruptly cut short by Vanessa, who steps out from behind the trees holding a piece of freshly picked fruit, her voice trembling slightly as she nervously requests a single moment of his time. Theodore barely spares her a glance, coolly stating that he is far too busy with his duties before turning on his heel to walk away from both her and the orchard setup. Desperate to stop him, Vanessa raises her voice and calls out his assumed name, River Rose, boldly shouting that she has a serious proposition to make. Theodore freezes in his tracks, turning back with a look of sharp amusement as he slowly echoes her choice of words. Blushing furiously but tightening her grip on the fruit in her hands, Vanessa musters every ounce of her remaining courage to stammer out the shocking truth that she wants to officially buy him. Sitting together 1 week earlier, Rosaline Fabian Winchester conspiratorially suggests that Vanessa could either pretend to have a severe mental affliction or simply act unbearably rude to break off the impending arrangement, even offering to lend her one of her grandmother's old dresses to seal the look. Propped up with a book, Blair Fabian Winchester lazily chimes in that wearing their grandmother's clothes might actually make the near 70-year-old Baron Howard like her even more, prompting a horrified reaction from Rosaline. Vanessa sits quietly between the two siblings on the couch, looking up with a bittersweet smile as she admits how deeply she misses their old school days when they could joke around together without a single care in the world. She stares ahead gloomily, realizing with heavy clarity that her uncle must have been calculating the exact moment of her graduation just to execute this terrible business transaction. Blair casually proposes a bold alternative, asking what would happen if they simply announced that he and Vanessa were in a romantic relationship. Vanessa scoffs at the idea, reminding Blair Fabian Winchester that he is the prominent heir to the Winchester Marquisate and, more importantly, already has a formal fiancé. Undeterred, Blair argues that a high-profile scandal involving the Winchester heir would immediately make her current marriage prospects fall apart. Rosalind agrees that a massive scandal would definitely disrupt the arrangement, though she clarifies she isn't advocating for an actual relationship with Blair, bitterly lamenting how unbelievably outdated it is that society remains completely obsessed with a woman's purity while the rest of the world progresses. As their voices fade into the background, Vanessa becomes lost in her own thoughts, barely catching her friend's earnest reassurance that if the situation ever becomes too agonizing to bear, they will do absolutely anything to help her run away or disappear entirely. Grateful but firm, Vanessa insists that she cannot drag her dearest friends into legal jeopardy just to escape her own marriage trap, resolving to find a way to dismantle the problem completely on her own. Turning her gaze toward the large window, Vanessa looks out into the sprawling estate grounds, watching a broad-shouldered worker tend into the farm below. Rosaline notices her focus and smiles, softly observing that Vanessa possesses a strange, sudden bravery when cornered, expressing absolute confidence that she will somehow figure out a brilliant solution. Later that afternoon, Vanessa watches the mysterious laborer from a balcony and quietly asks her personal maid for information about the man working on the estate grounds. Mary eagerly explains that the worker is Mr. Ross's nephew, River Ross, a naval sergeant who recently fought in the historic Battle of Potsdam and received an extended military leave, which he is spending helping his uncle tend the Somerset Gardens. The maid giggles as she adds that the entire female staff of the estate is in an absolute frenzy because such an incredibly handsome worker has arrived. Hearing the name, Vanessa's mind flashes back to a vibrant childhood memory, vividly remembering herself as a young girl shouting for a crying young River to hurry up so they could walk together. Staring down at the grown man below, she wonders to herself if he had always possessed such a striking, commanding appearance, realizing that if they share a childhood connection, her plan might be significantly easier to pull off. She reasons that if someone wishes to keep an item from being sold, the most effective strategy is to give it a flaw so utterly terrible that absolutely no buyer would ever dare to purchase it. Determined to ensure the resulting scandal ruins only her own reputation, without harming anyone else, she realizes that the low-born River Ross is the perfect candidate, especially since his physical appearance is nothing short of exceptional. Convinced that perhaps fate itself sent this man to deliver her from her uncle's schemes, Vanessa instructs a confused Mary to head inside first, stating she has urgent business to discuss with the gardener. Back in the present-day orchard, Theodore stares down at the young lady with a look of intense, quiet amusement, slowly asking what exactly she means by offering to officially buy him. Vanessa locks eyes with him, throwing away all formal hesitation as she boldly demands that he become her secret lover just for the duration of the summer, promising to compensate him with an incredibly generous amount of money. Theodore steps closer, coolly telling Lady Vanessa to drop the pointless, defensive formalities and state the true underlying reason behind such a shocking proposal. Stealing her nerves, Vanessa confesses that she requires a scandal massive enough to utterly decimate her marriage prospects and permanently cast her out of high society's marriage market. Matter-of-factly adding that a scandal involving a child would be absolutely perfect. She quickly promises to fully fund his cooperation for being dragged into her societal ruin and guarantees his absolute safety once the season ends, assuring him that everything between them will dissolve into something that never happened. Theodore lets out a slow, dangerous smile, stepping fully into her personal space as he reaches out to grasp her trembling hand, the very one still clutching the piece of fresh fruit. Slowly guiding her knuckles up until they rest right against his lips, he looks down into her wide eyes and silkily asks what would happen if, even after the summer officially concludes, he finds himself completely unable to grow tired of her body. Vanessa crushes her anxiety, but firmly counters that such a scenario will absolutely never happen, coldly adding that she would highly prefer it if he showed proper respect to her status as a lady. Theodore lets out a low chuckle, challenging her assertion by pointing out that if she truly desired respect, she probably shouldn't have put forward such a cheap, transactional proposal to sell herself off so poorly while offering to pay for the privilege. Defensive yet desperate, Vanessa fires back that she resorted to this method solely because money is the only resource she currently possesses to offer him. Looking down at her, Theodore's mind flashes back to a conversation he had secretly regular eavesdropped on earlier that very day. Recalling how estate gossips lamented that wealthy nobles like a near 70-year-old baron were arriving almost daily to inspect the young lady, essentially treating her graduation as the opening bell to throw her directly into the marriage market after the master's latest business ventures completely collapsed. Vanessa breaks his train of thought by urgently detailing her financial terms, explaining that she holds a personal pension that can be claimed immediately if she produces a child, promising to pay him an annual sum for 5 consecutive years alongside any additional funds she can independently generate, before asking if he has a specific price in mind. Theodore cuts her off mid-sentence, coolly stating that while he finds her desperate circumstances worthy of respect, he is by no means an impoverished man in need of her coin. Backed into a corner, Vanessa raises her voice in a desperate gamble, sharply revealing that she knows his uncle, Mr. Ross, has been heavily embezzling the estate's maintenance funds under the pretense of garden care, confidently adding that she has already secured every piece of incriminating evidence. Theodore remains outwardly unfazed, privately reflecting on how Lady Vanessa's blackmail attempt is just another unoriginal variation of the tedious, cliché high society dramas he has endured for years, reminding him of all the noble women who had previously thrown themselves at him, offering immense wealth, honor, and publicity while claiming to have loved his ducal title for years, or desiring to soothe the hidden scars of his childhood. Yet, as another heavy pomegranate falls from the branches and splits nearby, her blunt demand to buy him echoes in his thoughts, forcing him to admit that her raw honesty is far more intriguing than the elegant lies of high society, sparking a genuine curiosity to unravel the mystery of this woman. Slowly lighting another cigarette, Theodore exhales calmly and questions what a low-level gardener's financial crimes could possibly have to do with him personally. When Vanessa weakly protests that Mr. Ross is his flesh and blood, Theodore takes a slow drag and tells her that if she wanted to test his boundaries, a clumsy amateur threat was a terrible tactic, mockingly suggesting that she should have just confessed her undying love to him instead. Vanessa gasps at his arrogance, defensively arguing that it would be a vile deception to counterfeit feelings of love when absolutely none exist. Shrugging his shoulders with casual indifference, Theodore declares that the terms of their negotiation have officially collapsed. Terrified of losing her only escape route, Vanessa frantically begs him to wait, hesitantly asking if she simply needs to act as though she loves him to secure his cooperation. Theodore glides closer, a mocking glint in his eyes as he challenges her to decide whether she wants to threaten him or woo him, dryly reminding her that the entire plot is completely useless if he chooses not to play along. Suddenly closing the remaining distance between them, Theodore wraps a powerful arm around her waist, pulling her flush against his chest before capturing her lips in a sudden, deep kiss. Though his internal intent was merely to execute a cruel, humiliating lesson to scare her away, the unexpected, breathtaking softness of her lips instantly shatters his cynical expectations, replacing his planned disgust with a sudden, roaring wave of genuine physical desire for her. Breaking the embrace to catch her breath, a dazed and trembling Vanessa looks up into his hooded eyes, nervously whispering to ask if his sudden display means the arrangement is acceptable. Theodore forces his expression back into a mask of cool detachment, mockingly replying that fulfilling her request seems utterly impossible, leaving her completely off balance. High above the orchard grounds, Blair Fabian Winchester stands rigidly by a large castle window, his sharp eyes narrowing as he watches the intimate embrace unfolding in the distance. Summoning the family butler over to his side, Blair gestures toward the remote garden path, demanding to know the true identity of the unfamiliar man standing so close to Vanessa. The butler steps up to peer through the glass, quickly identifying the stranger as the visiting nephew of their head gardener, Mr. Ross, adding that the young man serves in the Navy and is merely utilizing his temporary leave to assist with the estate's heavy labor. Blair turns away from the window with a chillingly serious expression, strictly commanding the butler to initiate a thorough, covert investigation into the worker's background. The butler blinks in sheer bewilderment, openly questioning why a high-ranking nobleman would waste resources investigating a low-born gardener's helper, only for Blair to softly murmur that the supposed servant possesses a face that looks dangerously familiar. Rosaline turns from the couch, questioning exactly who it is that looks so familiar to her brother, but Blair deliberately changes the subject, asking if she is fully packed yet, given that there is less than a month remaining before their grand tour. Peering indifferently out the high window, Rosalind scoffs that she hardly needs to pack ahead of time, complaining that there is nothing of note outside, before flopping back onto the sofa to muse that people live the exact same way regardless of the destination. She sighs heavily, expressing her deep wish that Vanessa could join them, and wondering aloud why her friend keeps turning down the offer, even when Rosalind volunteered to cover every single expense just to repay Vanessa's recent hospitality. Blair keeps his eyes on his book, dryly pointing out that the current Earl of Somerset seems utterly desperate to rush his niece's transactional marriage through as quickly as humanly possible. Rosalind sits up abruptly, loudly protesting that Vanessa literally just graduated boarding school the other day, and arguing that forcing her into matrimony right now makes absolutely no sense. Blair counters with cool cynicism, suggesting that a rapid marriage might, ironically, be the swiftest path for Vanessa to secure her ultimate freedom, lightly noting that it is hardly rare for high society couples to maintain private lovers after the vows are exchanged. Rosalind glares at him, firmly reminding her brother of the precious, years-long friendship they share with Vanessa, before sharply telling him he should focus on his own upcoming wedding, pointedly asking if that formal engagement wasn't his own explicit choice. The playful banter evaporates as Blair stares solemnly out into the courtyard, quietly conceding that he is painfully aware of that reality more than anyone else in the world. A few days later, positioned discreetly on the estate grounds, Theodore and his comrade observe a high-profile meeting taking place on the veranda, the junior officer gesturing slightly toward the guest to identify him as the notorious Earl of Loudon, deducing that the previous marriage negotiations with the elderly Baron Howard must have officially collapsed. A passing estate maid approaches the two disguised men to hand them refreshing drinks for their heavy labor, quietly muttering that Baron Howard would have actually been a far more merciful choice for their young lady. Theodore looks up from his task, flatly asking the maid to clarify what could possibly make the Baron preferable. The maid leans in closer, whispering fearfully about Loudon's abysmal reputation, detailing how he has been wed multiple times without anyone knowing the dark fates of his previous wives, while adding rumors of his wandering hands with his own staff and a recent scandalous child born to a war widow before lamenting the cruel fate awaiting their beautiful, gentle mistress. Theodore grimaces, openly questioning why the Somerset family feels compelled to scrap the absolute bottom of the societal barrel, wondering aloud if the new Earl is deliberately trying to drag the remaining vestiges of their house's honor through the dirt. The sheer bluntness of the commander's statement causes his comrade to violently choke on his drink, prompting the panicked maid to hurriedly shush them and warn the supposed gardener to guard his tongue. The maid explains that because they have been away serving in the military, they clearly remain ignorant of the estate's ruin, revealing that honor is worthless now that every single business venture the master touched has completely collapsed. She sorrowfully concludes that Lady Vanessa is the only lucrative asset left for the Earl to liquidate, whispering that no one could have ever foreseen such a tragedy back when the previous Earl and Countess were still drawing breath. Inside the plush parlor, the Earl of Loudon lets out a boisterous laugh, boasting about how dizzy it makes him to think such an exquisite young lady was nearly stolen away by a 70-year-old relic. He expresses his profound gratitude to Somerset for reaching out to him so rapidly to prevent him from missing out on such a prime match, all while extending a bold hand to inappropriately touch Vanessa's shoulder as he notes her recent graduation and the rumors linking her to the young Marquess of Winchester. Earl Somerset waves a dismissive hand, smoothly guaranteeing his guest that there is absolutely no romantic entanglement to worry about, swearing on his word that the young lady and the Winchester heir have merely been platonic childhood friends. Alongside the twins, he proudly declares that he maintains absolute surveillance over every waking moment of his niece's private affairs, ensuring her complete isolation from outside help. Vanessa sits frozen, her gaze glued to the floor as she visibly quivers with silent revulsion under the heavy, inappropriate weight of Loudon's hand sliding down to stroke her thigh. Unbothered by her distress, Loudon accepts the Earl's assurances and declares that the upcoming autumn would be the ideal season for the wedding, calculated to give his household the exact amount of time required to prepare the contracts. Somerset gleefully matches his enthusiasm, expressing his immense satisfaction before eagerly pivoting the conversation toward the lucrative business arrangements they touched upon earlier. As the men's voices fade into background noise, a desperate Vanessa instinctively turns her head toward the window, her eyes instantly locking onto the tall, unmistakable figure of the disguised commander standing just outside. Later that evening, as twilight shadows stretch across the stone paths, Theodore walks quietly through the garden until Vanessa suddenly steps out from the gloom to intercept his path. The commander stops short, his expression hardening into a mask of total indifference, as he coolly informs her that he believes they have absolutely nothing left to negotiate. Refusing to let her final hope walk away, Vanessa steps forward and desperately demands that they repeat their previous encounter. When Theodore fixes her with a sharp, questioning gaze, demanding to know exactly what she is proposing, Vanessa blushes furiously but holds her ground, breathlessly clarifying that she wants to redo the kiss, confidently vowing that this time she is certain she can perform much better. Theodore simply turns his back to her, coolly questioning if anything would truly change even if they tried again, bluntly stating that he feels absolutely nothing for her. Clutching the fabric of his shirt to stop him, Vanessa desperately begs him to wait, her hands trembling violently as she reveals that her formal wedding date with the Earl of Loudon has already been locked in for the upcoming autumn. Theodore remains unmoved, dryly pointing out that if she is truly this desperate to sabotage her life, she should simply go out into the city and buy any other man instead of forcing this transaction onto him. Vanessa explains that she is strictly forbidden from leaving the estate grounds, though she notes that the heavy surveillance is marginally lighter within the castle walls. Theodore counters that inviting a stranger into the castle would easily solve her containment issue, only for Vanessa to sigh and remind him that every single person permitted to enter the property is directly employed by her tyrannical uncle. Steeping closer, Theodore bluntly tells her that she should simply run away as far as possible to escape her fate. Vanessa shakes her head in deep sorrow, explaining that her late parents are buried a short distance from the estate, leaving her as the sole remaining soul left to tend to their memory. Theodore scoffs at her self-sacrificing nature, asking if she truly intends to remain trapped here enduring every imaginable public disgrace just for the sake of her deceased parents, warning her that she will be entirely consumed as cheap gossip for high society. Looking up at him with immense hope in her eyes, Vanessa softly asks if he truly has no memory of her, gently reminding him that they used to play together quite often when they were children. Theodore stares at her earnest expression, immediately recognizing the name and considering whether it would be simpler to just confess that he is not actually the childhood friend she thinks he is. However, his tactical mind quickly realizes that if he reveals the whole truth, the desperate woman will immediately run to the real River Rose to repeat the exact same proposition, and his utterly naive junior officer would undoubtedly fall for it. Taking his hand into hers, Vanessa acknowledges that such a scandalous proposal might deeply offend his pride, but explains she targeted him specifically because he is a complete outsider, since he is not a nobleman. He has no high society honor to lose if they are caught. She clarifies that if she were to orchestrate a scandal with a wealthy nobleman, her greedy uncle would undoubtedly use the opportunity to extort them and force her into marriage with that person instead, an outcome she refuses to tolerate, firmly stating that marriage is utterly meaningless unless it is built on genuine love. She eagerly assures him that she will not disrupt his military vacation or become a lingering nuisance, promising that the scandal will only break after his departure, ensuring all public scrutiny focuses entirely on her alone. Clasping his hand tightly with both of her own, she softly reminds him that this is just a single summer season, a fleeting moment that will fade away before long. Theodore quietly weighs the three distinct paths stretching before him. He could take the woman as a commoner lover, save her from her tragic plight using his true ducal power, or entirely ignore her proposal and bring his peaceful summer getaway to an abrupt end. The answer crystallizes instantly in his mind. Desiring to prolong his hidden vacation a little while longer, he decides the alluring young lady is more than worthy of becoming his first true indulgence. His calculated thoughts are violently shattered by Vanessa's sudden, piercing shriek of terror. Noticing her trembling uncontrollably, Theodore commands her to slow down her breathing and state exactly what has caused her such immense panic. Completely breaking down, Vanessa frantically gasps that a massive spider has just crawled directly inside the fabric of her dress. Theodore inspects her back and easily spots the arachnid, calmly informing her that he has already taken care of the creature, dryly noting that she must have mistaken the sensation of it brushing against her hair. Still terrified, Vanessa begs him to look closer, one more time to be absolutely certain, insisting she felt it slip beneath her garments. A slow, calculating look enters Theodore's eyes as he silkily asks if she would like him to reach his hand inside her dress to thoroughly check for her. Stumbling slightly in her panic, Vanessa eagerly nods and begs him to please do exactly that. Theodore watches her closely, wondering if this is a remarkably novel attempt at seduction, or if she is simply boundlessly, helplessly naive. Regardless of her intent, he slowly presses his hand against her bare back, closing the distance between them as he murmurs her name, whispering that he is no longer sure he can restrain himself at this rate. With a smooth, deliberate motion, Theodore reaches behind her back and unties the delicate ribbon, securing her hair, sending a jolt of nervous anticipation through Vanessa as his warmth presses close against her exposed neck. Leaning down, he softly whispers against her skin that the terrifying spider she was searching for has already vanished completely. His hand traces a slow, deliberate path across her bare back, prompting him to ask in a low, teasing tone if they should bring their physical intimacy to an absolute halt right then and there. Vanessa holds his gaze, instantly refusing his offer and breathlessly urging him to keep going. Gently guiding her down onto the plush green grass, Theodore pins her beneath his weight, capturing her lips in a fiercely passionate kiss, before trailing his mouth hungrily down the sensitive curve of her throat. Clutching his shoulders, Vanessa's mind races in sheer disbelief, wondering to herself exactly when the fragile River Ross from her childhood could have possibly grown into such a powerful, overwhelming man. Theodore continues his slow descent, trailing burning kisses and licking across her breasts with an intoxicating intensity. Dazed by the sensation, Vanessa reflects on how utterly unrecognizable this commanding military figure is compared to the timid little boy she used to protect. Pulling back just enough to look into her flushed face, Theodore softly asks how she is holding up, mockingly questioning if she's truly confident that she won't end up weeping and desperately begging him to stay when the summer inevitably concludes. Mustering her remaining pride, Vanessa smirks defiantly and challenges him to a high-stakes bet to determine exactly which one of them will end up desperately clinging to the other. Theodore shifts his weight, sitting back away from her on the grass to break the immediate physical tension. He flatly informs her that he has absolutely no need for an heir, bluntly adding that his body is physically incapable of producing a child anyway. When a thoroughly bewildered Vanessa presses for a biological explanation, Theodore gently pats her head with an air of patronizing affection, telling her that they can satisfy that particular curiosity at a slow, deliberate pace. He adds that if she is perfectly content with discarding the child aspect of her plan, they are free to thoroughly enjoy each other's company for a brief window. Though he warns that such scandalous behavior will inevitably ruin what little remains of her reputation. Vanessa pushes herself up into a sitting position, her eyes flashing with a sudden, fierce resolve, as she loudly demands a single, non-negotiable condition for their arrangement. She strictly asserts that for the entire duration of their seasonal indulgence, they must remain absolutely faithful only to each other, fiercely imploring him to take their bond seriously rather than treating it as a disposable, short-lived game. Extending her hand to seal the deal, she emphasizes that she expects them to act exactly like a proper, devoted pair of lovers. Theodore reaches out, firmly enveloping her hand in his own as he calmly consents to her terms. Looking away to hide her deep blush, Vanessa confidently reasserts her resolve, swearing a solemn oath to God that even if it costs her very life, she will never be the first one to break and confess her love to him. Theodore smiles with quiet amusement, murmuring that he eagerly looks forward to watching her try, dryly noting that he doesn't personally believe in God, before asking if they should finally finish the passionate act they initiated. His hands slide up to rest heavily upon her shoulders, pulling her back toward him. Looking down at the trembling form of Vanessa Siren Somerset, Theodore silently reflects that while a standard season is famously brief, his years of military campaigns have taught him that a southern summer can be dreadfully, beautifully prolonged. He pulls her deep behind the privacy of the thick garden bushes, aggressively capturing her lips once more in the shadows. As the world fades around them, he confidently muses that the upcoming months will be more than long enough to force a tightly closed, unripe rose to blossom abundantly and bloom anew, silently concluding that Vanessa should have never agreed to a wager she was completely destined to lose. Theodore gently guides Vanessa toward the low entrance of his humble servant's shed, softly warning her to watch her head as they step inside the cramped quarters. As Vanessa looks around the small room in curiosity, the commander instructs her to get some rest if she feels fatigued, casually adding that he will step outside to fetch some clean water for her to wash up. Left entirely alone, Vanessa sits down heavily, her mind instantly flashing back to the intense heat of their recent embrace in the bushes. Flustered, she smacks her own cheeks in a desperate attempt to banish the memories, utterly unable to believe that she and the boy from her past actually crossed that line. The door creaks open as Theodore returns, carrying a basin of fresh water, raising an eyebrow as he catches her in a state of visible agitation and asks what exactly she is doing. Trying to deflect, Vanessa sweeps her gaze across the room and notes the surprising abundance of high-end luxury items, mentioning that she recognizes these specific designer brands from her wealthy friends' rooms before questioning if the Navy truly compensates its soldiers that extravagantly. Theodore sets the basin down, calmly stating that his military position pays decently enough, prompting Vanessa to gently lecture him about curbing his luxury spending rather than foolishly blowing his hard-earned wages on expensive goods. Theodore coolly dismisses her financial advice, asserting that he is perfectly capable of managing his own funds, while Vanessa reaches for a cloth and insists that she can clean herself up without his help. Stopping her hand, Theodore points out the total absence of mirrors in the shed, bluntly informing her that she is an absolute mess in several intimate places she cannot possibly hope to reach on her own. Vanessa's eyes widen with sudden anxiety as she nervously asks if her current appearance is truly that disheveled. Theodore looks her up and down, dryly replying that she looks messy enough for any passerby to instantly deduce that they had just passionately hooked up in the estate garden. Flushing red, Vanessa frantically tells him to slow down his words, stammering defensively that, strictly speaking, they haven't actually, but she trails off when Theodore tilts his head and demands to know exactly what they haven't done. Biting her lip, she shyly clarifies that they haven't completely gone all the way yet, only for Theodore to counter that she could hardly expect him to fully satisfy his physical urges when she was trembling like a leaf beneath him. Vanessa turns completely red from head to toe, furiously denying that she felt any such fear, Just as Theodore steps back and announces that he has finished gathering her wild hair into a beautifully intricate braid. Gently touching the perfect plaits, Vanessa marvels at how stunning it looks, eagerly asking how a rough naval soldier could have possibly acquired the skill to style hair so delicately. Theodore gently captures her chin between his fingers, tipping her face up to meet his gaze as he mysteriously whispers that it remains a secret, promising to reveal the truth the next time they arrange a rendezvous at the castle. Back inside the main castle corridors, an exasperated Mary confronts Vanessa, loudly demanding to know how long she was expected to search for her after she completely vanished right after lunch, admitting she was worried sick. Vanessa offers a quick, apologetic smile, smoothly fabricating a lie that she had simply wandered off to read a book and accidentally dozed off in the quiet sanctuary of the garden. Mary frowns as she inspects Vanessa's attire, pointing out a heavily soiled ribbon covered in obvious grass stains and declaring her immediate intention to toss the ruined fabric straight into the trash. Catching her maid's hand, Vanessa urgently insists that there is absolutely no need to discard it, quietly murmuring to herself that she might find a very specific, scandalous use for it during her next secret visit to the gardener's shed. Back in the quiet confines of the servants' quarters, Theodore stares down at the damp cloth he used to clean Vanessa's skin, casually tossing it aside into a bin before stretching out across his simple mattress. Resting his arm over his eyes, the cynical commander finds his mind utterly dominated by the lingering memory of the blonde lady, completely unaware that across the estate grounds, Vanessa is lying awake in her own bed. Her thoughts, entirely consumed by him, rested weakly against the pillows of her bed. A visibly sick Vanessa rests quietly, while her close friend Rosalind sits faithfully by her side, thoroughly engrossed in paging through the morning newspaper. Vanessa gently lectures her that she should have simply gone on the planned Suntory boating trip, reminding Rosalind how intensely she had complained the previous summer about being forced to stay trapped at the Somerset estate. Rosalind smoothly counters that she could never bring herself to go anywhere and leave a dear, ailing friend behind, insisting she would much rather spend her days right here in the room than lounge on a boat. Gasping in surprise at a bold headline, Rosalind points out a shocking gossip report detailing the mysterious disappearance of the young Duke of Battenberg. Reading from the column, she notes that because the nobleman is still managing his vast shipping companies strictly via mail and telephone, high society strongly suspects he has secretly run away with a hidden lover, prompting Vanessa to muse that this mysterious woman must have the powerful Duke completely wrapped around her finger to make him evade his royal marriage duties so cleanly. Holding the paper up for her sick friend, Rosalind catches Vanessa staring intently at the printed sketch of the missing Duke, finding something about the sharp lines of his face to be strangely, confusingly familiar. Rosaline catches her intense look and playfully teases her, demanding to know if Vanessa has actually developed a sudden, scandalous interest in the elusive Duke. Vanessa quickly denies the accusation from her sickbed. Just as Blair strolls into the bedchamber, dryly asking which wealthy bachelor has managed to capture his sister's interest this time. Blair glances down at the paper in Rosaline's hands and mockingly observes that the Duke possesses the exact kind of face that makes people want to plan their entire future just by looking at him, though he complains that the printed image is far too blurry to distinguish any actual features. Settling onto the couch together to continue the discussion, the siblings warn the bedridden Vanessa that harboring any fascination for the Duke is entirely pointless. Blair shares the darker rumors floating through the capital, detailing how his private life is notoriously messy and how multiple women have allegedly turned up at the Battenberg estate, claiming to be pregnant with his children, adding that the Duke has stubbornly refused to have a proper portrait painted in years to keep his appearance completely hidden. Rosaline immediately defends the absent nobleman, coolly stating that ordinary men are always incredibly petty whenever a far more outstanding gentleman eclipses them, suggesting they simply want to tear his flawless reputation to shreds out of pure envy. Vanessa quickly steps in to halt the bickering between the twins. Rosalind advises her sick friend to always keep her wits about her and never act without a clear, calculated reason. She affectionately encourages Vanessa to hurry up and fully recover her failing health, so she will be in top form for their upcoming family discussions. Her voice gradually fading into the background as Vanessa's eyes wander back to the blurry newsprint held by her friend. Sitting amidst the vibrant greenery of an outdoor cafe, the three friends lean over their table of frozen coffee drinks, as Rosalind eagerly asks for an update on the meeting, wanting to know if the publishers officially agreed to sign Vanessa's brand new novel. Beaming with quiet pride, Vanessa confirms the massive success of the meeting, adding that the publishers were so thrilled they even promised to allocate a dedicated advertisement slot, starting with this very contract. Rosaline claps her hands in excitement, gushing that the news is absolutely incredible and predicting that Vanessa will undoubtedly become a famous author in no time at all. Vanessa softly downplays the praise by stating she wouldn't venture quite that far, though she quickly expresses her deep gratitude to both siblings for accompanying her, admitting that her tyrannical uncle would have never granted her permission to leave the estate if she had tried to venture out completely alone. As they begin discussing whether to grab some dinner before heading back, Blair suddenly interrupts the celebratory mood by giving Vanessa a deeply serious look, firmly advising her not to push herself to such exhausting extremes with her writing career. He practical-mindedly argues that once she enters into matrimony, her future husband's massive fortune will legally become hers, meaning there is absolutely no logical reason to overexert her fragile health just to save her own pennies, especially since she will begin receiving a generous personal stipend the moment the vows are exchanged. Stunned by his sudden pivot, Rosaline stares at her brother in total speechlessness, prompting Blair to nervously chuckle and ask, what could possibly be wrong with the look she is giving him? Rosaline sharply questions his sudden change of heart, reminding him that he had explicitly promised to do whatever it took to save Vanessa from this unwanted marriage trade, demanding to know if he has already completely abandoned his resolve. Blair defensively counters that he is merely attempting to offer sound, realistic guidance as one of the people who holds her best interests closest to his heart. Vanessa watches the exchange in stunned silence, her eyes locked onto Blair as Rosalind scolds him for being so unnecessarily grave, pointing out that Vanessa isn't writing merely to scrape by, but rather to gain valuable real-world experience. Unamused by their back and forth, Vanessa quietly interrupts to reveal the raw truth, stating that she is actively seeking a path to permanent independence that circumvents marriage entirely, reasoning that since her uncle solely desires the transactional funds from a wedding alliance, she simply needs to secure that financial sum on her own first. Blair reacts with immediate alarm, asking if she truly intends to reject the institution of marriage altogether, sternly warning her how incredibly reckless and dangerous it is for an unmarried woman to reside entirely alone in their current society. He presses her further, demanding to know if she honestly believes her predatory uncle will just leave her in peace, before throwing out a sharp, suspicious inquiry about whether her defiance stems from secret, lingering romantic feelings for another man. Vanessa instantly dismisses the notion, firmly stating that her rebellion has absolutely nothing to do with a secret romance, but rather her absolute refusal to endure a business transaction marriage that her late parents would have utterly detested. Rosalind shoots her brother a deeply bizarre, uncomfortable look as he finishes speaking. Unperturbed by his sister's reaction, Blair reaches across the cafe table to gently take Vanessa's hand into his own, softly suggesting that she could simply go through with the legal arrangement and quietly keep a secret lover on the side, or fulfill her societal duty by providing an heir and choosing to live entirely apart from her husband afterwards. He coaxes her with the idea that holy matrimony might not be quite as horrific as she anticipates, earnestly questioning if there might still be a viable path for her to secure her own happiness within those boundaries. Later that evening, bathed in the warm, fading amber glow of a brilliant sunset, Vanessa walks alone along the quiet estate paths, her mind heavy with a deep sense of isolation. She reflects silently on the afternoon's conversation, acknowledging to herself that she always knew her sheltered friends would struggle to truly comprehend the raw desperation of her plight. Yet, a pang of sorrow hits her chest as she realizes she had still been foolishly holding out a sliver of hope, fiercely believing that the unique childhood bond they all shared was strong enough to transcend any societal divide. The heavy silence of the evening is suddenly shattered by the sharp, cheerful barking of a dog drifting through the nearby greenery. Turning her head toward the sound, Vanessa spots the broad-shouldered commander, dressed in his simple gardener's attire, playfully interacting with the energetic animal. Their eyes lock across the lawn, cutting through the quiet twilight. Theodore breaks the stillness by calmly calling out her name, causing Vanessa to freeze in her tracks as a wave of sudden hesitation washes over her. Steeling her nerves, she steps closer and offers a soft, reserved greeting, noting that it feels as though a significant amount of time has passed since their last intense encounter. Theodore gracefully pushes himself up to greet her properly, a faint, unreadable expression playing on his lips as he smoothly echoes her sentiment, confirming that it truly has been quite a while since they last stood face to face. Inside the quiet twilight of the servants' shed, Theodore gently pours a steaming cup of tea for Vanessa, casually noting that he half expected her to lose her nerve and flee the estate entirely. Setting down the kettle, Vanessa softly questions if he had actually been sitting there waiting for her arrival, prompting the commander to admit he had simply received word that she was bedridden with an illness. Vanessa explains that she has spent her recovery time agonizing over a new strategy to permanently dismantle her reputation, especially now that he has revealed his physical inability to father a child. Theodore reminds her that the southern region is deeply conservative, suggesting that a simple, circulating rumor about a highborn lady spending the middle of the night alone in a garden with a lowborn worker would be more than enough to completely ruin her standing. Vanessa counters that such fleeting gossip rarely makes it into the official newspapers, causing Theodore to question if her ultimate goal is to see her disgrace immortalized in print. She explains that spoken rumors are easily brushed aside and forgotten over time, whereas placing the scandal in print morphs it into an indisputable, absolute truth in the eyes of high society. Brainstorming wildly, she wonders if she should tip off the press and publicly fake morning sickness, though she immediately dismisses the idea upon realizing her uncle would simply bring in a royal physician to expose the fraud. She then questions if she should simply pretend to have completely lost her mind, but Theodore firmly cuts the idea down, warning her that maintaining such an exhausting psychological act until the bitter end is entirely impossible and better left unattempted. Desperate, Vanessa proposes playing the part of a wanton woman who shamelessly throws herself at every single man she encounters, only for Theodore to fall silent before dryly pointing out that she is already executing that exact behavior with him. Flushing furiously, Vanessa nervously concedes the point, while Theodore firmly cautions her that a reckless, uncalculated plan will ultimately ruin her life rather than save it. Looking away to hide her embarrassment, Vanessa quietly asserts that she merely visited his quarters tonight to look upon his face and visually confirm that her health has fully recovered. Theodore reaches out and gently twirls a stray strand of her blonde hair between his fingers, mockingly observing that she looks exactly like a desperate merchant, trying entirely too hard to prove their absolute loyalty to a wealthy client. Shifting her posture, Vanessa defensively tells him that he is free to leave if he has duties to attend to, noting that she has a strict writing deadline to meet before the night ends. Theodore watches in curiosity as she begins scribbling furiously, recognizing the pages of a novel as Vanessa explains her urgent need to ensure personal funds are available completely outside of her family pension. Theodore echoes the very advice she received at the cafe, telling her not to overexert her fragile health with such intense financial pursuits, arguing that there is no logical need to gather wealth when her royal pension will activate the moment she marries. Blair's identical, dismissive words flash vividly through Vanessa's mind, prompting her to look up and quietly ask the commander if he truly believes this kind of creative labor is entirely unnecessary for a woman of her noble standing. To her surprise, Theodore answers that he thinks no such thing, and when Vanessa presses him on whether he genuinely respects the inherent value of hard labor, the disguised Duke coolly clarifies that he merely believes in the absolute supreme value of money. The two lock eyes in a heavy, charged silence before Theodore suddenly closes the distance, capturing her chin firmly in his hand as he pulls her lips to his, their tongues wrapping around each other in a deep, intoxicating kiss. Later, the atmosphere shifts to the narrow mattress, where Theodore has her pinned gently beneath his weight, sensing her sudden rigidity and quietly asking if she truly wishes for him to halt his advances. Vanessa lies frozen as her pulse hammers violently against her ribs like a runner completing a frantic sprint, a sudden, blinding wave of primal fear washing over her at the sheer reality of the situation. His mocking warning about her weeping and desperately clinging to him once the summer ends echoes deeply in her thoughts, forcing a moment of intense doubt. Realizing with fierce determination that she has already crossed the threshold and there is absolutely no turning back now, Vanessa casts her lingering fears aside, pulling him down to capture his lips in a fierce, binding embrace. The physical intimacy intensifies within the quiet sanctuary of the shed as Theodore smoothly strips away her outer layer of clothing, his hands moving with a practiced, deliberate care. Looking down into her flushed face, his thoughts begin to race in confusion, wondering why this particular woman is so profoundly different from the endless parade of high society ladies who have lusted after his title and fortune until now. He marvels at the reality that Vanessa is neither terrible, boring, nor unpleasant to be around, inwardly questioning why he suddenly finds himself wanting and desiring her with the raw, consuming hunger of an ordinary man. A deep realization washes over him that perhaps, from the very first moment his eyes fell upon her in the garden, he possessed a subconscious premonition that this woman would someday completely shake up the rigid foundations of his life, and to his own surprise, he finds himself thoroughly glad for it. Days later, the rhythmic clatter of horse hooves echoes through the countryside as Theodore rides inside a moving carriage alongside his aristocratic cousin, Edgar Lowell Marlborough. Glancing out at the passing scenery, Edgar breaks the silence by openly questioning if the Duke is truly comfortable residing in such a profoundly rural environment, blunt-mindedly pointing out that the entire area appears incredibly shabby, small, and dirty. Edgar sighs in exasperation, arguing that it makes absolutely no logical sense for a man of Theodore's stature to reject a prestigious marriage proposal from the royal princess just to hide away in a distant, forgotten backwater estate. Leaning back against the leather cushions, the cousin continues his lecture, noting that his self-imposed exile would only be justifiable if he were harboring a hidden, illegitimate child somewhere, before concluding that he can entirely sympathize with why their grandmother is so utterly furious back at the palace. Theodore fixes him with a cold, unbothered stare, flatly countering that a marriage alliance with the princess yields absolutely zero benefit to his house, dryly stating that such a match would merely reduce him to the hollow title of the king's son-in-law. He points a strict warning finger at his companion, coldly asserting that if Edgar intends to do nothing but spout useless nonsense for the remainder of the journey, he is perfectly welcome to turn around and go right back home. Edgar falls silent, studying the commander closely as he inwardly notes that the Duke's overall demeanor and energy have subtly yet drastically shifted since their last meeting, leaving him intensely curious as to what could have brought about such a profound change. The silent scrutiny draws a sharp, angry glare from Theodore, who quickly averts his eyes to look out the carriage window, only for his gaze to instantly lock onto a beautifully dressed noblewoman walking gracefully along the path beneath an umbrella. Recognizing the striking blonde hair and silhouette from a distance, Theodore's heart leaps into his throat as he momentarily mistakes her for Vanessa, leaving him completely startled and deeply embarrassed by his own sudden physical reaction. Realizing his foolish error, the commander instantly snaps his head away, violently shaking his thoughts clear before burying his face in his hand in a display of intense, silent exasperation at his own lack of control. Edgar catches the sudden movement and peers out the window himself, playfully asking if Theodore desires an immediate introduction to the elegant lady, identifying her as Lady Haley Morton from the powerful Marquisate of Morton. The cousin eagerly details the strategic advantages of the match, pointing out that an alliance with the Morton family would guarantee immense corporate and political benefits for Theodore's shipping business, while adding that her outstanding beauty might finally pacify the Dowager Duchess's matchmaking demands. Theodore cuts through his transactional pitch with a dry, cutting remark, advising his cousin that he should at least attempt to mask his greedy, calculating expressions when proposing such cold business arrangements. Theodore casually admires the lady's exceptionally pretty neck just as the carriage grinds to a final halt, and an attendant steps forward to announce their official arrival at the destination. Edgar smiles widely as he prepares to disembark, gleefully noting that the Dowager Duchess will be absolutely thrilled when he reports the Duke's sudden interest in a proper noblewoman, promising to contact Theodore with updates before stepping out into the gravel path to approach the lady. Left entirely alone in the quiet confines of the carriage, Theodore watches through the glass as his cousin approaches the blonde stranger, silently reflecting that the two women do not look a single bit alike upon closer inspection. As the carriage door shuts, his mind instantly drifts back to the suffocating heat of that secret night in the shed, realizing with a heavy heart that even now, he remains entirely intoxicated, utterly buried within the memory of Vanessa's small, warm embrace. Letting out a slow, defeated sigh, the cynical commander closes his eyes against the bright afternoon sun, completely powerless against the lingering ghost of her touch. Huddled over her writing desk, Vanessa focuses intensely on the pages of her novel, but her focus repeatedly fractures as her mind drifts back to a tender, secret memory from the gardener's shed. She vividly remembers waking up in Theodore's bed the morning after their embrace, watching as the commander softly instructed her to get some sustenance into her stomach while presenting her with a fresh basket of ripe strawberries. He had playfully teased her, noting that she had screamed quite a bit during their intimate encounter and must be completely drained of energy, prompting a thoroughly flustered Vanessa to snap at him, not to tease her, before she began hungrily devouring the fruit. Memory of her preparing to leave as dawn approached fills her thoughts, recalling how she had stressed the urgency of her departure before Mary began searching the grounds for her at sunrise. She had quietly muttered her intention to return the very next night, only for Theodore to gently dampen her spirits by informing her that he would be away from the estate on business for the next few days. Before she could express her frustration, the commander had caught her completely off guard by pulling her close, softly whispering a promise that if she stayed put and waited for him nicely, he would return with a wonderful present. Back in the present day, Vanessa suddenly buries her face against the wooden table, clutching her cheeks as a wave of intense shyness washes over her. Helplessly muttering that he had acted exactly like a devoted lover, despite the fact that she hasn't seen his face for an entire week. Her deep, romantic reverie is abruptly shattered when Mary hurries into the private room, catching her mistress in a state of visible agitation and frantically demanding to know why she is standing around in such a strange, dazed manner. Wiping her expression clear, Vanessa quickly manages to claim that nothing is amiss, urgently asking her maid what could possibly be causing such a commotion. Mary breathlessly delivers the unsettling news that her repulsive fiancé, the Earl of Loudoun, has just arrived at the castle completely unannounced and is currently demanding her presence down in the grand parlor. Stepping into the lavish room, Vanessa faces the predatory nobleman, who offers a cold, smooth greeting, and notes that a significant amount of time has passed since their wedding date was officially finalized. Loudoun steps closer with a critical sneer, openly observing that his future bride doesn't exactly look thrilled to welcome him to the estate. Vanessa forces her voice into a calm, polite facade, countering that she was merely startled because she received absolutely no prior notification of his arrival, adding that her uncle happens to be away from the property at the moment. Loudoun waves a dismissive hand, arrogantly stating that he is well aware of Somerset's absence, since his explicit purpose for visiting today is Vanessa herself, adding that while he originally intended to take their courtship slow, his rigid schedule leaves him with absolutely no time to waste. Gesturing toward a severe, stone-faced elderly woman standing quietly in the shadows behind him, Loudoun introduces her as Madame Luther, proudly identifying her as a highly renowned and trusted expert in a very specific field of high society matters. When a deeply bewildered Vanessa demands clarification on what exactly this dynamic means, Loudoun expresses open surprise, asking if her uncle truly failed to detail the final terms of their marriage transaction. Vanessa holds her ground, firmly asserting that Mr. Wyatt explicitly mentioned absolutely nothing of the sort to her before his departure. Loudoun adopts a deeply patronizing tone, explaining that a physical examination is a strictly mandatory procedure for families of their exalted standing to establish absolute trust and ensure the legal legitimacy of a future successor. He crudely argues that if an incredibly expensive piece of property turns out to be inherently defective upon delivery, any sensible buyer would be profoundly disappointed with the transaction. The horrific reality of his words dawns on Vanessa, her voice trembling with cold fury as she demands to know if he is truly forcing her to physically prove her chastity to a stranger. Loudoun admits that her private boarding school history has been heavily weighing on his mind, condescendingly noting that while Somerset urged him not to worry, high society women in the modern era have become entirely too wild and untrustworthy for his liking. Enraged by the absolute degradation, Vanessa fiercely screams that if he harbors such profound doubts regarding her virtue, he should break off the engagement immediately, confidently declaring that she will answer to her uncle for the consequences. Turning on her heel to flee the suffocating room, Vanessa's escape is violently cut short, as Loudon lunges forward and viciously grabs her wrist, twisting her back toward him as he snarls a horrific command for her to shut up, sit down, and force her legs open for the examination. Loudon shifts his tone on the couch, patronizingly telling a weeping Vanessa not to cry, while noting with a smirk that he had temporarily forgotten his young fiancée is still prone to childish emotional outbursts, casually asking what he can do to ease her distress. Madame Luther interjects with a stiff apology to the Count, clarifying that forcefully spreading a lady's legs for a physical inspection is entirely against her refined methods, noting that medical doctors are far better suited for such clinical tasks. The old woman displays a small vial, explaining that she merely requires a single drop of specialized holy water to accurately verify a woman's chastity. She claims that on a modest, untouched body, the liquid will remain perfectly still upon the skin, whereas it will instantly fail to cling and run down if the lady is no longer pure. Loudon relents with a dark chuckle, agreeing that they must save some mystery and delight for the husband's actual wedding night, admitting he finally comprehends why virtuous high society houses hold the old woman's integrity in such high regard. Eager to witness the results, the Count readily complies when Madame Luther politely requests that he step outside the parlor for a moment, leaving the two women entirely alone. Settling onto the couch directly beside the trembling girl, Madame Luther coldly commands Vanessa to extend her bare arm for the test. Vanessa quietly accuses the OKD woman of practicing a clever psychological deception, pointing out that the holy water is likely nothing more than ordinary liquid designed to exploit a person's guilty conscience. She explains that an innocent soul will remain perfectly steady, preventing the drop from moving, whereas a woman harboring deep fear will inevitably tremble, causing the water to slide down her arm and seal her guilt. When a defensive Madame Luther demands to know what exactly she is implying, Vanessa confidently notes that the Count's compliant exit proves he trusts her implicitly, meaning the old woman holds the ultimate power to invent whatever narrative she pleases, regardless of how the water reacts. Seizing the upper hand, Vanessa boldly states her desire to financially purchase the old woman's fabricated verdict to protect her secrets. Later that evening, beneath a heavy downpour, Vanessa stands quietly, watching the rain ripples distort her reflection in the dark puddles below. She bitterly reflects that if this confrontation had occurred weeks prior, she would have joyfully welcomed the chance for her uncle to discover her ruined purity, as a public scandal was the exact weapon she had desperately sought to break her chains. Her gaze softens with sudden sorrow as she realizes the terrifying truth. The only reason she is now frantically fighting to hide her condition is because the fleeting summer hasn't reached its conclusion yet. Her heavy thoughts are interrupted by the quiet approach of Theodore, who holds a large umbrella over her head and softly asks what she is doing out in the elements alone. Looking up at the disguised commander, Vanessa completely breaks down into a fresh wave of tears, throwing her arms desperately around his neck and causing the umbrella to slip from his grip and tumble onto the wet ground. Deep within the dark, quiet sanctuary of the servants' shed, the two lie unclothed in bed together, where a breathless Vanessa weakly complains that her throat has become completely hoarse from their passion. Theodore, dryly questioning why she insisted on holding her voice back and suppressing her natural reactions in the first place, assuring her there was absolutely no need for such restraint. Vanessa defensively counters that she was terrified someone would overhear their illicit tryst, fiercely reminding him that he is the one who will face immense danger if their relationship is prematurely exposed before his military leave ends. Stroking her skin, Theodore brushes her anxieties aside, gently telling her that rather than physically harming her body by stifling her cries, she should simply allow herself to make noise, as if they were a pair of truly devoted lovers. Vanessa's mind briefly drifts back to the conclusion of her secret deal in the parlor, remembering how Madame Luther had proudly refused her money, claiming a woman of her standing survived her entire life on absolute trust alone, rather than cheap bribes. The memory echoes with the old woman's chilling parting terms, instructing Vanessa to contact her the exact moment she finds herself carrying a child so she can provide a potent medicine to erase the pregnancy without a single trace. Most vividly of all, Vanessa recalls the old woman's final, grim piece of emotional advice, warning her never to surrender her heart to a seasonal affair that can never last, as she will ultimately be the only one left shattered. Snapping back to the present reality of the warm bed, Theodore firmly instructs her that she needs to learn how to properly care for her own physical well-being. Giving him a soft, affectionate smile, Vanessa quietly agrees to his command, before laughing softly and playfully warning him to ensure he takes his own advice the next time they meet. Inside the quiet twilight of the servants' quarters, Vanessa sits at the wooden table reading a book, softly asking the commander if it is truly acceptable for her to delay her return to the castle tonight. Lounging comfortably on his mattress, Theodore looks over at her, noting that she usually rushes back to the estate incredibly early under the pretext that her personal maid is actively looking for her. Turning a page, Vanessa explains that a grand circus is being hosted in the village today, prompting almost the entire castle staff to clear out to watch the festivities, and leaving her with ample time to linger without suspicion. Theodore casually asks if she harbors a secret desire to attend the event herself, catching her completely off guard with the sudden proposition. Seeing her hesitation, he points out that her expression practically radiates a desperate longing to experience the festival. Though Vanessa nervously counters that venturing out carries a massive risk of running into someone she knows, warning that her tyrannical uncle would never overlook such a severe transgression if she were caught. Theodore smoothly reassures her that they simply need to ensure she remains entirely unrecognized, stepping forward to playfully crown her head with a wide-brimmed hat to conceal her high-born features. Amidst the bustling crowds and bright lights of the festival grounds, Vanessa looks around uncomfortably, adjusting her unfamiliar attire while muttering that the garments feel incredibly awkward and make her feel as though the entire crowd is staring at her strangely. Dressed down like a simple country farm girl in a rugged dungaree over a plain shirt, she listens as Theodore dryly muses that her self-consciousness is rather ironic, given the highly impressive amount of shopping bags she is currently lugging around. Vanessa defensively explains that the upcoming birthdays of her closest companions are rapidly approaching, noting that because she rarely enjoys the freedom to venture out without their company, she sees the opportunity to purchase their gifts. Anxiously asking the commander if he believes they will truly appreciate the choices. Glancing down at her purchases, Theodore silently notes the elegant brooch selected for Rosalind and the sophisticated cufflinks intended for Blair, observing her deep fondness for the siblings. A sudden, thunderous boom echoes from above as brilliant fireworks illuminate the dark night sky, instantly captivating Vanessa's attention and washing away her lingering anxieties. Radiating pure joy, she points goggles toward the heavens, breathlessly calling out to the commander to ask if he witnessed the stunning, butterfly-shaped explosion that just burst directly overhead. Theodore quietly responds that he caught the display, but Vanessa immediately laughs and calls him an absolute liar, playfully accusing him of keeping his eyes firmly fixed on her face the entire time, rather than looking at the sky. Blushing slightly, she urges him to hurry along toward the main tents, noting that the official circus performance is scheduled to begin at any moment. Watching her eager figure step forward, Theodore's expression turns profoundly bittersweet as he silently reflects that this entire summer is nothing more than a fleeting, beautiful dream destined to never return, leaving him completely unable to dare hope for a genuine future together. He muses darkly that their entire bond is fundamentally entangled in a web of deep deception from its very inception, realizing that even if fate were to somehow grant them a sudden reunion somewhere down the line, his internal monologue is violently shattered when an unfamiliar voice suddenly calls out his high-ranking military title, loudly greeting him as the commander and expressing absolute honor at running into him, stating the capital rumors of his hidden southern vacation were true after all. Theodore freezes, casting a sharp, dangerous look at the intruder, before coolly demanding to know if the man truly recognizes him, prompting the stranger to proudly introduce himself as Second Lieutenant Campbell from the esteemed 4th Battalion, eagerly inviting the commander to drop formal military protocols. Maintaining his rigid face, Theodore flatly cuts him off, coldly asserting that his identity is strictly Sergeant Ross, and firmly informing the officer that he has made a profoundly heavy mistake. Before the confused lieutenant can stammer a response, Vanessa suddenly turns around and calls out Theodore's assumed name, her eyes wide with a sudden, devastating sadness. Theodore slowly turns his gaze away from the soldier, his heart sinking as he looks directly into her fragile expression and quietly echoes her name in the fading light of the festival. The bewildered military officer nervously attempts to clarify his mistake to Vanessa, completely clueless as to the commander's hidden agenda. while Vanessa's voice trembles as she quickly covers the slip-up by breathlessly declaring that her shopping bag has just been stolen. Arriving at the local police station to file an official complaint, the desk officer recites the details of the alleged theft back to them to confirm the report. Vanessa explains that the incident occurred at a busy stall near the entrance of the alleyway, while her attention was entirely diverted by the festival attractions, prompting the officer to note that such pickpocketing has become a common practice lately before requesting her legal name. Vanessa freezes in sudden panic, internally agonizing over the reality that providing her true identity will inevitably prompt the authorities to contact her tyrannical uncle immediately. Before she can falter, Theodore Liam Battenberg smoothly interjects, introducing himself as her protective companion and instructing the lawman to direct all future correspondence to him instead. The officer readily accepts the arrangement, politely promising to get in touch the very moment any of her missing property is recovered. Once they step back outside, Vanessa turns to him with wide, excited eyes, eagerly questioning the specific name he had just provided to the law officer, recognizing it instantly as a common nickname for Theodore and demandingly asking, since when a simple naval sergeant possessed such a high-born alias. Theodore abruptly cuts off her line of questioning by firmly grasping her hand, startling the young lady into gasping his name. With a sudden surge of movement, he drags her completely out of sight into a narrow, shadowed alleyway tucked behind the festival buildings, pinning her flush against the cold brick wall before capturing her lips in a fiercely passionate kiss. His internal thoughts swirl with an intense hunger to touch this woman without any barriers between them, desperately craving to feel their frantic heartbeats echoing as a single rhythm, even if the illusion only lasts for a fleeting second. Vanessa weakly presses against his chest, breathlessly imploring him to wait and pleading with him not to initiate such scandalous behavior out in the open streets. As she desperately whispers his alias to make him stop, Theodore slowly backs off with a dark, teasing glint in his eyes, mockingly wondering aloud what sort of incredibly dirty thoughts his lady must be harboring before placing a gentle, reassuring kiss upon her forehead. Later that evening, the two stand quietly at the crest of a stone bridge, gazing down at the rhythmic ripples distorting the dark water below. Vanessa lets out a disappointed sigh, lamenting the reality that they missed the circus performance entirely, bitterly noting that they should have hurried along much faster had she known the venue tickets would vanish so rapidly. Theodore looks out over the horizon, coolly countering that if she harbored such a desperate desire to see the show, she simply should have voiced it sooner, arrogantly boasting that he could have easily bribed the gatekeepers with a little extra pocket cash to secure entry. Vanessa turns to chide him with an exasperated look, strictly warning him that he is bound to face total bankruptcy one day if he persists in spending his modest wages so recklessly, pointing out that between the excessive luxury goods filling his room and his current casual attitude toward bribery, his financial habits are utterly terrible. She reminds him of the harsh reality that it is incredibly difficult for a low-born commoner to save a sustainable livelihood, softly adding that her personal maid Mary repeats that exact sentiment to her constantly. Theodore merely offers a quiet, non-committal murmur of agreement, completely unbothered by her lecture. Softening her posture, Vanessa turns back to the water and quietly confesses how remarkably peaceful this moment feels, admitting that she is utterly sick and tired of the suffocating, prison-like atmosphere within the castle walls. She admits that a deep part of her constantly wishes to permanently flee the wretched place, to build a life somewhere far away, before fixing the commander with a fierce, unwavering gaze and promising that once she has firmly established her own independence, she will absolutely come back to rescue him from his low-born station. Her desperate vow instantly triggers a painful, buried memory from Theodore's distant childhood, flashing back to the day his own mother looked down at him with the exact same expression, softly asking her little boy if he truly understood what his mommy was telling him before she abandoned him forever. Snapping back to the dark reality of the present evening, Theodore's expression hardens with deep, cynical conviction, privately realizing that in the end, this noblewoman will inevitably prove to be exactly like all the rest who have abandoned him. Looking deeply into her wide, expectant eyes, the hidden duke tilts his head and delivers a dangerous, low-voiced proposition, challenging her by asking if he should simply take her hand and run away with her right this very second. Startled by his sudden proposition to run away, Vanessa looks at him in confusion, asking if it is truly the low-born River Ross who is suddenly wishing to break free from his own life. Theodore counters that she was the one who explicitly claimed she wanted to escape to anywhere, but Vanessa firmly shakes her head, stating she cannot bear the thought of innocent people suffering on her personal account. She explains the severe consequences of a sudden flight, noting that her closest friends would instantly be placed under heavy state surveillance. Her loyal maid Mary would find it entirely impossible to secure employment in another noble household. And wanted posters bearing her name would be plastered all across Ingram. Rather than allowing innocent souls to be dragged down to protect her, she reasons it is infinitely better to ruin only her own reputation. Therefore, she reveals her calculated new strategy. She intends to deliberately involve herself in high-profile scandals with several other men besides him. Theodore's expression instantly hardens with severe displeasure at the mention of rival suitors. Vanessa quickly promises that she will strictly ensure his name remains entirely untainted by the fallout, confidently calling this her foolproof method. She reasons that upper-class men inherently treat their entanglements with beautiful women like grand tales of heroism. As long as she holds her tongue, they will willingly gossip and boast as they please. Furthermore, if rumors spread that she is surrounded by a vast web of lovers, high society's curiosity regarding a simple gardener's nephew will rapidly evaporate. Theodore fixes her with a dark, piercing look, coldly asking if her brilliant new plan is truly just to approach as many men as humanly possible. Internally, a sudden, inexplicable wave of frustration rushes up his throat. Deeply unsettled by how this woman can be so meticulously calculating in one breath and entirely reckless in the next. Softening her tone, Vanessa looks at him warmly and admits that she truly enjoyed herself tonight, for the first time in a very long while, earnestly thanking him for granting her such a wonderful memory that she doubts she will ever forget until the day she dies. Theodore scoffs, calling her a blatant liar and predicting that she will likely completely forget what his face even looks like in just a few short years. Shocked, Vanessa defends herself, asking how she could possibly forget his features. Theodore's hidden anger flares as he sharply points out that she managed to completely forget the true face of the River Ross she played with during her childhood. After all, Vanessa instantly counters that she remembers every single detail perfectly, prompting Theodore to challenge her by demanding to know exactly what the boy looked like back then. Without a moment's hesitation, Vanessa confidently asserts that his hair was pitch black and his eyes were a piercing blue. Theodore stares down at her, seeing her face look so utterly brave, innocent, and completely shameless as she speaks. The disguised Duke feels a momentary, unprecedented sting behind his eyes, as though he might actually shed a tear. Discomposed by his own melting defenses, he quickly face-palms to mask his emotions, muttering that her description is yet another blatant lie. Vanessa simply laughs softly, playfully asking how it could possibly be a lie when his very eyes look exactly like that right now. Later that night, back within the dimly lit corridors of the castle, Vanessa is stepping quietly through the halls when Blair suddenly steps out from the shadows, sharply asking if she is only just now returning home. Gasping in shock, Vanessa presses a hand to her chest, exclaiming that he thoroughly startled her before demandingly asking exactly how long he has been waiting there, noting that Rosaline had explicitly informed her he would be away from the estate all day. Blair steps closer, his gaze scanning her intensely as he notes that she has been deeply unwell lately, adding that Rosaline was continuously worried her severe fever and exhaustion would never break. Vanessa quickly brushes his concern aside, claiming she felt caught up and significantly better today, before turning the question back on him. Blair interrupts her smoothly, coldly asserting that he is the one who should be demanding answers. Gesturing downward, he sharply questions where exactly she is returning from while dressed in such rugged, common country attire. Vanessa tries to deflect, weakly claiming the evening was simply so warm that she had ventured out for a brief, casual stroll. Refusing to tolerate the evasion, Blair suddenly lunges forward and forcefully grabs her face in his hands, pinning her gaze as he growls that she has never been able to look him straight in the eye whenever she is telling a lie. Wrenching against his grip, Vanessa screams out, fiercely demanding to know what on earth he thinks he is doing. Tightening his iron hold on her jaw, Blair leans him close, his voice dripping with sudden, venomous suspicion as he demands to know if she has already managed to secretly find herself a lover. dangerously adding that it seems as though she was out meeting someone from the Navy. Holding her face in an iron grip, Blair pushes his accusations further, flatly stating it is entirely obvious she was out meeting a military man. Vanessa desperately struggles against his hold, maintaining that the man is merely an old childhood friend whom she happens to see from time to time, claiming they only exchanged greetings out of pure gladness to see each other after so many years. Blair scoffs at the excuse, sharply demanding to know if ordinary friends engage in such scandalous acts as well, before aggressively tearing open her collar to expose a dark, fresh hickey stamped against her skin. He aggressively presses her, demanding to know if her predatory uncle has any inkling that she is carrying on in this disgraceful manner, or if he knows about her reckless behavior with a low-born naval officer. Summoning all her strength, a furious Vanessa violently swats his hand away from her clothes, fiercely warning him never to dare lay another finger on the commander, before coldly telling Blair that he has absolutely no right to treat her this way, and ordering him not to cross the line any further, if only for the sake of his own fiancée. The mention of his engagement causes Blair's emotional restraint to completely shatter, and he lets out a bitter, agonizing truth, revealing that his mother had explicitly claimed to their family that Vanessa had already lost her virtue to her own uncle. He explains that a protective Rosalind flew into a furious rage upon hearing the slander, resulting in her being strictly confined to the manor for the entirety of the academic break for daring to defy their mother. Blair details the horrific extent of the blackmail, confessing that his mother fully intended to write a formal letter to the boarding school, demanding Vanessa's immediate expulsion by claiming Rosalind's insolent tongue was entirely her fault. He reveals that his sister deliberately sacrificed her freedom and lamented missing the entire Centauri boating trip last summer just to secure her release and keep Vanessa safe from total social ruin. Blair confesses that in order to protect both of them, he had no choice but to accept the bitter, miserable engagement his mother demanded, fiercely telling a stunned Vanessa that she knows absolutely nothing about the heavy chains preventing him from crossing the line before he turns and storms out into the night. Marching directly out into the estate gardens, a furious Blair barges straight into the vulgar, cramped servants' quarters to confront the man he believes is a simple soldier. He looks around the shabby room with a sneer, mockingly addressing the man as the great duke whom His Majesty's royal guard is so desperately hunting for across the entire kingdom, noting how unbelievable it is that the nation's most powerful commander would be hiding away in such a dirty, low-born space. Blair remarks that since Vanessa truly believes him to be nothing more than a mere naval officer, he supposed he must offer his formal apologies for interrupting the masquerade. He sharply reprimands the hidden duke for deferring the prestigious marriage proposal from the royal family in such an insulting manner, asserting that, thanks to his selfish flight, the king has become an absolute laughingstock both at home and abroad. Theodore, however, remains completely unfazed on his simple mattress, looking up with a mask of cool, dangerous amusement as he commends Blair's remarkable devotion to the royal family, before dryly asking why the young lord doesn't just willingly offer his own body to the princess instead. Gritting his teeth against the mockery, Blair strictly demands that the duke settle his affairs immediately and permanently vacate the estate within a few short days, revealing that the solitary reason he has held his tongue and protected his true identity until now was strictly for the sake of preserving Vanessa's honor. Theodore lets out a low, cynical chuckle at the word, openly questioning her supposed honor and reminding the young heir that the lady seemed exceptionally eager to use him to completely destroy her own reputation. Theodore shifts his gaze, locking onto Blair with a dangerous intensity as he asks if Blair wasn't secretly praying for that exact scandalous situation to unfold as well. Blair tries to maintain his aristocratic composure, coldly lying that he has absolutely no idea what the commander means by such a ridiculous statement. Theodore scoffs at the denial, bluntly telling Blair that he is a fool if he thought the Duke wouldn't notice his pathetic gaze, constantly spying on them from the dark shadows like a common voyeur. He ruthlessly lays bare Blair's hidden psychological motives, explaining that when Blair firmly believed Theodore was just a low-born commoner, he calculated that a ruined Vanessa would easily fall right into his hands. Theodore explains that Blair secretly hoped a summer scandal with a servant would completely destroy her standing in the high society marriage market, opening the door for a desperate, abandoned Vanessa to eventually crawl straight into Blair's bed one day. The commander delivers a devastating insult by mocking Blair's pristine hands and noting it is a massive pity that the common fish he attempted to catch turned out to be a powerful Battenberg, completely shredding his cowardly safety net. Flushing with a mixture of intense guilt and exposed panic, Blair attempts to salvage what little remains of his dignity, stiffly stating that if their business is officially concluded, he will take his leave, arrogantly claiming that, unlike certain people lounging in the dirt, he is a very busy man. However, the crushing weight of his absolute helplessness against the Duke's power completely breaks him, and his noble facade shatters entirely. Discarding every single shred of his aristocratic pride, the heir to the Marquisate drops heavily onto his knees in the dirt before the disguised commander, completely bowing his head in total submission. He pathetically begs and prays that the Duke will desist his games and leave the estate before Vanessa is hurt any further, openly weeping that she is infinitely precious to him. Theodore stands perfectly still, looking down at the kneeling, broken nobleman without a single ounce of human sympathy or warmth. The silence in the garden stretches to a suffocating degree before the hidden Duke delivers the final, soul-crushing blow to Blair's entire existence. He coolly questions what earthly benefit or protection a pathetic coward like Blair could possibly offer to a young lady when he is already fated to spend the rest of his entire life desperately hiding his true romantic feelings from the watchful, tyrannical eyes of his esteemed mother. Theodore leans down slightly, pinning the air with a piercing glare as he delivers the definitive ending line, mockingly asking the broken young lord if he is truly wrong. Rosaline lounges comfortably on the couch, while Marie carefully helps Vanessa into her elaborate attire, with Rosaline openly venting her utter disbelief regarding Blair's sudden decision to completely cancel his highly anticipated grand tour, even questioning how they could have possibly come from the same womb when he acts so entirely out of his mind. She informs her friend that she will soon be returning to London alongside her brother, noting that until their final departure, they will be taking up residence at a hotel in Bath. When a concerned Vanessa questions if a hotel stay might be incredibly uncomfortable and warmly invites them to remain at the Somerset estate instead, Rosalind grows visibly anxious and quickly apologizes, explaining that if they prolonged their stay, her tyrannical mother would surely hunt them down in a fit of absolute rage due to her deep loathing of Vanessa. She immediately realizes what she just said and apologizes to her. Vanessa smoothly dismisses the anxiety by stating it is simply the objective truth, softly recalling that their mother actually doted on her constantly when they were children, before they grew distant following her parents' tragic passing. Though her mind heavily drifts back to the dark, agonizing secrets Blair exposed to her the previous evening. Rosalind breaks her trance by noting that their mother will likely remain quiet for the foreseeable future because Blair's wedding date has been aggressively brought forward as a natural consequence of his canceled tour, leaving a thoroughly shocked Vanessa to process the sudden timeline, while Rosalind complains about him being dragged straight to the altar, despite somehow securing a marital home right here in the nearby countryside. Wondering how much he intends to make his poor bride suffer in the rural backwater, the intricate dressing process finally comes to an official end as Marie announces that her lady's attire is completely finished, prompting an excited Rosalind to loudly urge Vanessa to hurry up and step out of the dressing area. Vanessa emerges looking absolutely radiant and breathtakingly beautiful in her elegant bridal gown and veil. Yet she nervously adjusts the fabric and anxiously inquires if the entire look appears strange or unflattering. Rosalind falls completely in love with the sight, instantly rushing over to her side and passionately declaring that Vanessa is so utterly gorgeous, it makes her want to track down and violently murder her elderly fiancé, the Earl, this very instant, throwing her arms tightly around her. Rosaline tearfully explains the old high society superstition dictating that a bride's closest companion must be the absolute first person to witness her beneath her wedding veil to guarantee a lifetime of pure happiness, admitting that while she completely detests the horrific marriage alliance, she is profoundly overjoyed to behold this once-in-a-lifetime moment with her own eyes. Vanessa melts into the tight embrace, holding her dear companion back while quietly whispering her boundless, heartfelt gratitude from the bottom of her soul. As the two young women remain locked in their emotional embrace, the heavy wooden door to the dressing room softly cracks open from the outside corridor, revealing Blair standing silently in the threshold, watching the tender scene unfold with a profoundly conflicted expression. Meanwhile, deep within the lavish walls of the Winchester mansion, a severe family conflict erupts, as Henry Winchester informs his wife that Blair has boldly declared his absolute intention to spend his upcoming honeymoon in the South, even after his marriage is finalized. His volatile wife, Louise Winchester, snaps back in a bitter rage, strictly asserting that they should have never permitted the children to reside at the Somerset estate in the first place. Openly confessing her absolute loathing for the way Vanessa continuously mingles with their family, Henry casually steps closer and gently captures her chin in his hand, pointing out that Louise becomes entirely too anxious and unhinged every single time this specific topic is raised. Glaring back at him, Louise bitterly accuses her husband of harboring a truly wicked, twisted sense of amusement, prompting Henry to deliver a dark, terrifying insinuation by questioning if blood instinctively recognizes blood, openly wondering if their children will ever possess the capability to recognize their true biological father. The narrative violently flashes back into a deeply buried, traumatic memory from the past within the dark confines of the mansion, exposing a young, weeping Louise collapsed completely onto the floor in absolute despair. Standing coldly over her, Henry demandingly questions who else holds the knowledge that she is currently carrying a child in her womb, forcing the sobbing woman to whimpering face confirm that she has strictly told absolutely no one else besides Henry and her secret lover. Henry ruthlessly grasps her hand and pulls her up, informing the terrified Louise that the moment a child resides in her womb, that child officially becomes his property alone. He asserts that their transactional marriage will proceed exactly as originally arranged, commanding her to give birth to the child by his side because tying her to his name is the ultimate, inescapable lifelong punishment he can possibly inflict upon both her and the man she truly loves. Returning right to the emotional present reality of the dressing chamber, Vanessa and Rosalind are still holding on to each other in their tight embrace. Blair slowly pushes the cracked door open just a fraction wider to get a clearer view, but his movements instantly alert Vanessa, whose sharp eyes snap toward the threshold to catch him spying on them, leaving the two of them locking eyes in a deeply bizarre, suffocatingly tense silence. Theodore sits alone in the luxurious study of his grand castle, tightly clutching the official investigation papers in his hand as his thoughts completely drift back to Vanessa. Images of her reckless behavior fill his mind, prompting him to sink heavily back into his chair with a deep, exhausted sigh before dropping the paperwork directly over his face, bitterly wondering to himself if the noble woman has truly lost her mind by planning to throw herself into multiple high-profile scandals. Snapping out of his reverie, Theodore suddenly pulls the paper from his face and drops it onto the desk, his gaze hardening as he coldly informs the uninvited young lady sitting across from him that he does not recall granting her permission to take a seat. Lady Haley Morton casually offers a smooth greeting without a shred of intimidation, prompting the Duke to completely bypass pleasantries and demand to know exactly how she discovered his hidden location, sharply questioning if the leak originated from his loose-lipped cousin Edgar or his calculating grandmother. Haley offers a cryptic smile, admitting she is completely unable to answer his inquiry because she has absolutely no desire to displease him by speaking the harsh truth. Nor does she wish to tell a lie and destroy the potential for future trust between them. Theodore scoffs openly at her defense, flatly declaring it entirely ridiculous for her to speak of mutual trust when they have only ever crossed paths once or twice in high society. Unfazed by his cold demeanor, Haley shifts her strategy and reveals that she has caught wind of a serious rumor detailing his secret romantic involvement with a woman in the South, boldly warning the Duke that if the gossip proves true, he will very soon find himself in desperate need of her political alliance, just as she is currently in need of His Grace's power. Later that evening, the tense atmosphere of the capital dissolves into the quiet sanctuary of the servants' shed, where Theodore and Vanessa are sharing a warm, intimate bath together. Vanessa softly murmurs that his hands-on assistance is entirely unnecessary and insisting she is perfectly capable of washing her own body, questioning why he must persistently fuss over her. Theodore gently pulls her back, countering that she has clearly endured a deeply difficult and exhausting time lately, noting that it has been a significant while since she was able to truly relax. Vanessa lets out a soft sigh, admitting she only relented to the shared bath because he kept stubbornly insisting on pampering her, before her expression turns profoundly serious, as she mentions that she has officially completed her bridal dress fitting while he was away. She looks at him with an anxious, heavy gaze, reminding the commander that the very moment summer reaches its end, her arranged marriage to the old Earl will officially take place, leaving them with an incredibly short amount of time to secure her ultimate freedom and execute her desperate plans. Deep within the capital, a high-stakes confrontation unfolds as Theodore sits across a lavish table from his stern, commanding grandmother. The Dowager Duchess takes a slow sip of her tea before offering a major concession, stating that if he finds the Morton family heir, Haley, to be an acceptable bride, she will willingly drop her aggressive pursuit of forcing him into the royal marriage with the princess. Theodore narrows his eyes, noting it was indeed his scheming grandmother who orchestrated Haley's sudden ambush, before flatly declaring that the young lady is entirely unacceptable to him and reiterating that he has absolutely zero intention of accepting the royal princess either. Setting her teacup down with a sharp clatter, the furious grandmother demands to know if the Duke truly intends to bring a definitive, shameful end to the glorious Battenberg lineage, reminding him that the Mortons are a founding family of Ingram with an absolutely flawless reputation. She fiercely argues that if he would truly rather face death than yield to a royal wedding, an alliance with Haley remains his absolute best option to prove his unwavering loyalty to the crown through marriage. As the tension reaches a boiling point, they sharply call out each other's names, prompting the grandmother to bitterly invoke the past by asking if they haven't already witnessed the catastrophic, fatal consequences of his own parents' absurd love affair. She promises not to openly reproach him for whatever scandalous flings he is engaging in during his current military leave, but strictly demands that he meet with Haley at least 3 times before she will respect his final decision, lamenting that her old heart is completely wrecked by his defiance and reinforcing her lifelong warning never to abandon family duty for something as trivial and fleeting as love. Theodore tightly clutches his fist in silent, burning rage, bitterly mocking the very concept of love in his thoughts as he reflects on his reality with Vanessa. Knowing their bond is a tragic relationship already fundamentally ruined from the very start by deep deception and calculated lies. Back within the quiet ripples of the warm bath, Vanessa looks up at the commander and instantly senses a heavy, unreadable shift in the atmosphere. She realizes the familiar pattern is happening all over again, internally wondering if the simple naval officer, River Ross, has any earthly comprehension of the intense, consuming gaze he casts upon her from time to time. She tenderly notes that this mysterious man frequently acts as though their golden summer will never reach its conclusion, operating under the beautiful, tragic illusion that their secret relationship will somehow endure forever. Cutting through her bittersweet thoughts, Theodore leans down and places a soft, lingering kiss upon her forehead, silently sealing them both in the fleeting warmth of their stolen time. Inside his quiet shed, Theodore sits at his desk painting when Vanessa unexpectedly informs him that she will be away from the castle for an entire week, starting the following day to attend a hunting event hosted by House Essex, the Earl of Loudon. She explains that she had continuously attempted to refuse the invitation under the pretext of having not yet made her formal debut in high society, but her fiancé stubbornly insisted she gain proper experience prior to their upcoming wedding, boasting of his own passion for the sport. When Theodore questions if she has ever hunted before, Vanessa candidly admits she doesn't even possess the basic knowledge of how to hold a firearm, prompting the commander to rise from his painting, take her hand, and begin personally instructing her on proper marksmanship using a simple umbrella as a substitute rifle. He carefully adjusts her posture, warning her to press the stock firmly against her shoulder to avoid a painful dislocation, instructing her to part her legs, straighten her spine, and focus entirely on holding her position while reassuring her that servants will handle the heavy task of loading the weapon by her side. As Vanessa admires his exceptionally clear explanations, as expected of a seasoned naval officer, Theodore muses darkly on the nature of firearms, explaining that humans aim weapons rather than relying on teeth or claws, creating an equalizing force that allows even the most fragile body to eliminate an opponent, warning that once a person becomes fully accustomed to such power, they might easily mistake a human for a beast and pull the trigger, imitating the sharp crack of a gunshot directly against her ear as he guides her hands. As the heavy weight of his words settles over her, Vanessa internally reflects that if River Ross has truly come to love her, she must push him away all the more fiercely, determined never to cast a fatal blemish over the promising future of a devoted soldier or allow herself to become his ultimate weakness. Choosing to deeply cherish his affection in secret, rather than drag him down into her tragic fate, she yields to the intense emotion surging between them as they dissolve into a passionate, consuming kiss. The following morning, Vanessa rides inside a motorcar alongside her maid Marie, who anxiously checks on her lady's terribly pale complexion and inquires if she is feeling unwell. Vanessa weakly attributes her sickness to the violent swaying of the vehicle, prompting Marie to bitterly complain about why Lord Somerset provided them with such an outdated, uncomfortable model when he owns an entire collection of luxury automobiles. Vanessa gently defends her uncle, noting that the vehicle is actually a deeply treasured possession that he personally repainted and custom imported the engine for. Before her thoughts are sharply shattered by the driver announcing their arrival at Kingston Street, marking the immediate boundary to the Essex territory. The mere mention of Kingston sends a violent jolt of trauma through Vanessa's mind, dragging her back to a devastating childhood memory of the catastrophic accident that occurred on that very road. Vividly recalling the gruesome moment the carriage overturned and claimed the lives of both her mother and father. Clutching her trembling hands together as they cross the threshold, she desperately tries to quiet her mounting dread, frantically reassuring herself that everything will be fine and that nothing bad will happen to her this time, just for the motor car to suddenly jerk violently, losing its balance as the wheels skid dangerously across the path. Meanwhile, Theodore carefully reviews a confidential intelligence report regarding Vanessa Somerset's family background. The document details that while no other unusual activity was uncovered, highly suspicious circumstances surround her family's inheritance, revealing that roughly a month before the former Earl and Countess met their sudden deaths, the estate's line of succession was hastily altered to favor her current uncle, Wyatt Somerset. The report further highlights troubling legal discrepancies in the inheritance documents and notes that the notary attorney who officially signed off on the transfer has completely vanished without a trace, leaving behind an unreliable paper trail that the investigator promises to pursue further. Setting the damning paper aside, Theodore looks off into the distance with a solemn expression, privately realizing that the long, cold winter Vanessa has been enduring is rooted in a far darker, deeply sinister conspiracy than she ever imagined. Mary screams out in sheer terror for Vanessa, panicking as she notices blood trickling heavily down her mistress's forehead and frantically checking if she is all right after the violent skid. Despite her own injury, a shaken Vanessa immediately asks if Mary is unharmed, prompting the maid to confirm she is completely fine before weeping over the bloody wound on Vanessa's head. Vanessa softly reassures her that she is fine, urgently demanding to know what caused the sudden accident, to which Mary explains that a shady man unexpectedly threw himself directly in front of their vehicle, promising to step outside and check on the situation while urging Vanessa to remain safely inside. As Vanessa waits anxiously inside the motor car, the driver angrily complains about why the lunatic chose to throw himself in front of their vehicle in this specific location of all places. Unable to sit still, Vanessa steps out into the road and screams in horror upon seeing a man lying on the dirt path, covered in heavy blood and groaning in agony as she urgently asks if he can move. Mary rushes over to grab her mistress, warning her that she will get blood all over her fine clothes, and urging her to step back. But a desperate Vanessa insists that the man is severely injured and demands they fetch a doctor immediately. Suddenly, the groaning man mutters a chilling string of words, raving that he recognizes that specific motor car, its distinct engine roar, and its unique color without exception, before crazily declaring that if they want to keep his mouth shut, they must hand over more money, even asking if he needs to kill someone for them again, just like he did back then. Vanessa stands frozen in utter shock at the man's horrific confession, but her thoughts are abruptly interrupted as local police officers storm the location and apprehend the lying culprit, berating the rascal for pulling the exact same scam once again. The officer turns to apologize to the shaken women, explaining that this malicious rogue frequently targets motor cars with unusual colors, deliberately causing chaotic scenes to feign injury and extort money. When a bewildered Vanessa points out that the man was bleeding profusely from his body, the police clarify that it is merely fake blood kept inside a hidden pouch that he deliberately splashes over himself during the stunt. Relieved yet exasperated, Mary complains about the scoundrel's fraudulent trickery, turning her worry toward Vanessa's ruined gown and fretting over how her fiancé Lord Loden will react if she arrives at the Essex estate in such a state. Vanessa's attention is suddenly captured by a gleaming object left behind in the dirt where the fraudster had been lying. A beautiful pocket locket, attached to a fine chain that the man dropped during his arrest. Picking it up, the object instantly triggers a vivid, emotional memory of her late father, presenting her with a locket, fondly explaining that he intended to place a small painted portrait of her inside so he could gaze upon his beloved daughter whenever he missed her. Opening the metal shell, Vanessa beholds a tiny family portrait inside, confirming the terrifying truth that the scammer was directly involved in her parents' fatal crash under her uncle's orders. Turning to her maid with absolute resolve, Vanessa instructs Mary that they must immediately locate a nearby telephone to notify House Essex that an urgent matter has arisen, preventing her attendance, before turning on her heel and marching away. As Mary frantically chases after her, breathlessly demanding where she is suddenly rushing off to, Vanessa turns back with a fierce look and reveals she is heading straight to Gloucester to confront her uncle. Deep within the grand estate of the Earl of Essex, the Earl sits across from Theodore while reviewing a massive pile of business documents, sheepishly admitting that the complex investment proposal is not something he can approve entirely on his own authority. The Earl politely requests His Grace's permission to briefly step away and consult his family's personal attorney and investment expert via telephone, to which Theodore calmly grants his leave. Expressing his deep gratitude, the Earl hurries out of the room, leaving Theodore alone with his young cousin, Edgar. Edgar looks over at the commander in utter disbelief, sharply asking if Theodore truly intends to establish an entire commercial racecourse down in the south, solely for the sake of a single woman. Theodore coolly clarifies his strategic reasoning, explaining that he had already been surveying the southern territories belonging to Lord Dove and Lord Navre from the very beginning, noting that since the financial projections and expected returns were nearly identical, he merely accommodated his own personal circumstances a bit more. Pushing further, Edgar bluntly asks if the powerful Duke genuinely intends to marry a hidden woman from the rural south, to which Theodore delivers a dark, cynical response, questioning if there could possibly be anything else in the entire world that would make a more complete, devastating mockery of his personal honor and the Grand Battenberg name. Sipping his tea, Theodore listens as Edgar voices his utter bewilderment, completely unable to fathom why the Duke intends to pour a vast fortune into an otherwise worthless southern region, while stubbornly refusing to enter a political marriage. Theodore casually clarifies his logic, stating that marriage offers him zero personal benefits, whereas elevating the Somerset enterprise will transform her family into the wealthiest house in the South. He reasons that once her family's standing is secured, Vanessa will never have to fear forced marriages or settle for men beneath her status, allowing her to live peacefully in the place she loves and pursue whatever she desires. He views this immense financial elevation as sufficient compensation for deceiving her regarding his true identity and profiting off her misunderstandings. Scratching his head in total confusion, Edgar asks if the young lady even knows he is expanding his business empire on such a massive scale for her sake, to which Theodore coldly questions why she would ever need to know. Warning the commander that he is setting himself up for profound regret, Edgar calls him by his first name, prompting Theodore to sharply order his cousin to repeat it. When Edgar speaks his name aloud, Theodore's mind briefly flashes back to the intimate memory of Vanessa softly whispering his name, causing him to glare at Edgar and bitterly declare that hearing his name come out of his cousin's mouth leaves a foul taste in his mouth. Back at the castle, Vanessa stands outside her uncle's quarters, tightly clutching the blood-stained locket, prompting Marie to ask if she should step forward and officially summon the master on her lady's behalf. Vanessa softly refuses, explaining that before she confronts her uncle with such a grave accusation, it would be far wiser to verify the truth beyond a shadow of a doubt. Noticing her maid's shaken state following the violent car accident, Vanessa gently instructs Marie to go and rest for the remainder of the evening. As Vanessa walks away to pursue her investigation, Marie turns to leave, only to be abruptly intercepted by Wyatt Somerset, who casually approaches and admits he was just about to summon her to his private chamber. Later, inside the private bedroom, Wyatt lies shirtless across the mattress, while Marie sits anxiously along the edge of the bed, softly asking what she owes his unusual generosity and affection to. Wyatt boastfully reveals that he received a remarkably lucrative business proposal earlier that day, arrogantly promising that if the venture succeeds, he might even elevate Marie to the rank of a countess. Throwing a wad of cash into her lap, he aggressively grabs her and commands her to remain completely submissive and obedient to him. He then shifts his tone, demandingly questioning why Vanessa returned to the estate in such an abrupt hurry while on her way to House Essex. Marie quickly lies to protect her mistress, claiming that Vanessa had been feeling deeply unwell since the previous night and was utterly terrified by the vehicle accident. Wyatt pushes further, sharply asking if there has been anything suspicious or unusual about Vanessa's behavior lately, prompting Marie to recall Vanessa's frantic rush to find a telephone on the road. In the present moment, Marie desperately insists that Vanessa spends her days exactly as she always does, with minimal demands, flatly denying that her mistress is secretly seeing any new man. Refusing to be fooled, a vicious Wyatt snaps that he utterly despises being lied to, aggressively lunging forward to violently grab Marie by her hair and twist her wrist until she screams in agony. He brutally accuses her of taking bribes from Vanessa to hold her tongue, leaving the maid weeping in horror as Wyatt delivers a terrifying revelation, demandingly asking how on earth Vanessa could have possibly met the Duke of Battenberg and where their secret meetings took place. A few days later, Vanessa secretly places a phone call to track down the truth, explaining to the contact on the line that she understands her family's official legal advisor was mysteriously changed halfway through her parents' tenure, explicitly stating that she is searching for the identity of their very first original advisor. The person on the other end anxiously questions if the current Earl is aware she is digging into such sensitive family matters, prompting Vanessa to lie that her uncle does not know as of yet, but promising she will inform him soon, while swearing on her honor that if they simply provide the name, she will never trouble them with further inquiries. After a tense moment of waiting on hold, the contact returns to give her the information, allowing a relieved Vanessa to carefully write down the name Viscount B. Dawson, privately realizing that if this man was her parents' original attorney, he will surely hold the key to uncovering the truth behind the altered inheritance. Pondering how to orchestrate her departure from the castle to meet the attorney, Vanessa realizes she desperately needs a believable excuse for her uncle and can no longer rely on Rosaline's assistance. Her train of thought is abruptly interrupted when her uncle himself calls her over, insincerely noting that it has been a long time since they walked together, despite residing under the exact same roof, while observing her gaunt and pale appearance. Vanessa weakly dismisses his concern by explaining she has been slightly unwell lately but is doing fine now, prompting Wyatt to surprisingly announce that her upcoming wedding to Lord Loden has been officially postponed for the time being, hypocritically claiming that the old Earl's sordid reputation is far worse than he anticipated, and asserting he will not allow the Somerset name to be tarnished by acting in haste. He reveals his intention to spend the upcoming winter in the capital due to business affairs, framing the marriage delay as a golden opportunity for Vanessa to experience high society life before her wedding, slyly suggesting that with any luck she might even snag a suitor wealthier than Loden. Seizing the perfect opening, Vanessa asks if her uncle would take her along to an exclusive shipboard cruise party in a few days' time, noting she saw their family name on the published guest list alongside the very attorney she is hunting, strategically adding that it would be a grand experience before departing for the capital. When Wyatt hesitates due to his busy schedule, Vanessa entices him further by pointing out that it is the largest cruise liner in Ingram, boasting that numerous wealthy gentlemen will be in attendance, and mentioning that widespread wagers are being placed on whether the elusive Duke of Battenberg or the king himself will show up. Taking the bait, her uncle's eyes light up at the mention of Battenberg, internally gloating that his niece has managed to hook a remarkably big fish, and he readily agrees to take her alongside Rosaline, sternly ordering her to behave herself while aboard the ship. Sometime later, Vanessa sits quietly outside the empty servant's shed, playing with Theodore's dog while lost in bittersweet contemplation, reflecting on how many painful days have passed since River Ross vanished without leaving behind a single word. She realizes that attending the multi-day shipboard party will prevent her from seeing him for an even longer stretch, agonizing over her need to adapt to his absence while being haunted by the terrifying fear that he might have simply left her life forever without saying goodbye. Bitterly acknowledging that this is the first time he has been away for such an extended period, a wave of miserable sentimentality wells up inside her. though she desperately tries to rationalize her heartache by reminding herself that they are not truly real lovers, even as her heart stubbornly protests that summer has not ended yet. Suddenly, the dog stops playing, snapping its head toward the pathway and letting out a joyous bark, prompting Vanessa to look up and freeze in shock as she beholds Theodore standing before her. Looking down at her flushed, deeply blushing face, the disguised commander offers her a warm, knowing smile, softly questioning what she is doing out in the elements alone, and teasingly asking if she was waiting for him all this time. Inside the quiet shed, Vanessa sits comfortably on Theodore's bed and casually brings up the latest castle gossip, sharing that the maids have been buzzing about a wealthy gentleman moving into the abandoned mansion nearby, rumored to be a young naval officer. She notes that workers have been lugging tons of precious, extravagant materials into the estate, leading everyone to suspect he must be a figure of extraordinarily high status. When Theodore noncommittally questions the rumor, Vanessa chuckles and teases that she never pegged him as a man interested in high society gossip, before blushing as he presents her with the shopping bag she had lost during their festival outing, explaining that the police officer contacted him on his way back to return her missing belongings. Vanessa lets out a massive sigh of relief, admitting she was terrified she would have to spend her limited savings to repurchase birthday presents for Blair and Rosalind, though her joy fades slightly when she digs through the bag and realizes Blair's gift is completely missing. Presuming a pickpocket must have swiped that specific item, she laments the loss, while Theodore dryly agrees that it is a shame. Shifting the conversation, Vanessa informs him that she will soon be attending an extravagant party aboard a luxury cruise ship, explaining her need to experience high society before her marriage while secretly keeping her true investigation hidden. Theodore approves of her attending and suddenly hands her an exquisite, sparkling blue pendant as a gift. Gasping in utter disbelief at the breathtaking jewelry, Vanessa nervously asks if he truly realizes what gem he just gave her, pointing out that she recognized it instantly from newspaper headlines as the legendary Demure diamond managed directly by the Battenberg family. Expressing shock that even a high-grade replica must have cost him an absolute fortune, Theodore coolly explains that since she previously claimed she would draw the attention of other men to protect his low-born reputation, she will need such a luxury, noting that men are foolish, simple creatures who naturally crave things that appear immensely expensive. When Vanessa insists she could easily manage without such an extravagant gift, Theodore smoothly counters that having it will make her mission of captivating men infinitely easier, pointing out that men are simple creatures who naturally crave things that appear immensely expensive. However, behind his charming encouragement lies a dark, calculated scheme. He secretly knows that far from attracting suitors, any noble who recognizes the prestigious Battenberg mark around her neck will instinctively shrink back in utter terror, effectively scaring off any potential rivals before they even dare to approach her. Keeping his possessive strategy completely hidden from her, he leans down to softly kiss the necklace against her skin, telling her to shine brighter than anyone else at the party. A few days later, Vanessa and Rosalind arrive aboard the Grand Cruise Ship, where Rosalind notices her friend's tense demeanor and teasingly questions why she is clutching a formal briefcase while wearing such a sophisticated party dress. As Vanessa frantically tries to formulate an excuse, Rosalind warmly reassures her that because she has not yet made her official debut in high society, the elite crowd will easily forgive a slightly unusual outfit, playfully adding that men actually tend to prefer a bit of endearing imperfection anyway. Ignoring the banter, Vanessa keeps her focus strictly locked on her secret objective, internally reminding herself that she must locate Viscount Benjamin Dawson, without raising a single shred of suspicion from Rosalind. Her opportunity arrives almost immediately when Rosalind warmly greets a handsome young nobleman named Logan Dawson, who smiles warmly at both ladies and remarks on how long it has been since their graduation, reminding them that they shared the exact same classroom for 3 whole years. The moment the name Dawson echoes through the air, Vanessa's attention sharpens, and she eagerly inquires if Logan happens to belong to the family of Viscount Benjamin Dawson. When Logan proudly confirms his lineage, Rosalind encourages them to catch up on old times while she steps away to attend to her own social affairs. Left alone with the young lord, an excited Vanessa asks if he attended the cruise alongside Mr. Benjamin Dawson, and upon learning that the Viscount is Logan's great-uncle and currently inside the venue, Vanessa impulsively grasps Logan's hands in overwhelming relief. As a flustered Logan blushes at her sudden physical touch, Vanessa warmly explains that the Viscount used to work closely with her late father and mentions she has urgent questions to ask him, prompting the charming young nobleman to eagerly offer to guide her directly to his uncle. Standing in the shadowed alcoves of the upper deck, Theodore silently watches the entire interaction unfold from afar, his sharp eyes locking onto the sight of Vanessa intimately holding the young lord's hands. A dark, knowing smirk touches his lips as he privately reflects that even after he went through all the immense trouble of marking her as his own with the Battenberg diamond, his cunning Vanessa certainly never ceases to prove just how endlessly resourceful she can be.